When we were deciding, we knew what we wanted to be. So we started with what we wanted to be as a core. We wanted to be an approachable place where we provided the highest quality service, medicine, but we didn't want it to feel scary. And we also wanted it to produce the outcomes that our demographic wanted. So that meant that we knew that base and then we had to build around it. So it's like, how do we communicate that to people who don't know about us yet? But when they walk by, I want them to be able to get a hint of this vision of what this place is going to be.
Hi, I'm Chelsie Wyse. Navigating the chaotic waters of marketing can be murky and riddled with not so helpful paywalls and fancy speak. We all deserve better, and we should expect better. Since 2010, I've been challenging the marketing and advertising industries, questioning the true impact of KPIs, paid social media ads, and terms like creative content creation and sustainable growth. Let's unearth the way that things have been done. Let's talk about marketing and business growth in a no-nonsense way. In each episode, I'll give you tips and tools you can start using as soon as the episode is done. Let's wise up.
Oh, hi, Meredith. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So Skin CoLab and Ada, tell listeners a little bit more about what Skin CoLab is. Was this a fever dream in the middle of the night? Was it the vision since you were 5? Tell me all the things.
Skin CoLab is about to celebrate its 4th birthday, and it is nestled right in the heart of downtown Ada, new kind of build in terms of restructuring the whole community. And truth be told, I grew up in Ada, in the historic town, did all of my things, and I've always had a heart for this place. And so I'm fortunate enough to live here now. So to be able to be one of the corner businesses helping to make this community thrive has been amazing. So that's just
full
like
circle
a
moment,
full circle
too.
moment.
Yeah.
But beyond that, Skin CoLab is really a place where we provide luxury aesthetic medicine for everyone. So that means we are focusing on skin health, and that could be in terms of products. It can be in terms of services or procedures.
Ooh, I hear the word procedure and I get a little nervy. Do you have any clients that come in and they're like, does that mean you're going to pull my face back and I'm going to
It could be nothing
scary...
surgical is going on. You'll be able to leave the office and probably go for a nice walk outside. And so that's part of knowing who we wanted to serve. And our group in our demographic really wants a beautiful natural outcome. They want to look healthy, but we need help doing that. So we offer services that keep people looking their best, keep them looking like them, but they can go about their life. And so yeah, if there's a person that comes in, when I talk about aesthetic services, I'm talking Botox, lasers, facials, just for, non-clinical people. If they're like, what in the world is aesthetic services? It's not like hair and nails. This is more on it's a medical aesthetics practice. So, but that doesn't have to mean that you look like you've had anything. And it also doesn't have to mean that you have to do surgery. There are some, we're well integrated into the community. So if there are people that we need to help refer here or there, we can always do that. And that's been part of our brand story, is just integrating ourselves in collaborating within the community. The name, right? But really, we've knowing our customers and knowing our patients helps us to know what services we bring into the practice, because we know we're trying to serve them and solve their problems.
Okay. So you mentioned branding in your last response.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about the education component. I know as a current client of Skin CoLab, I like to come in and get facials. I like to talk about aesthetic practices. I like to talk about skincare products and what I can, level up, what might be working for me. How does that all fit into the CoLab's brand? Skin CoLab brand?
So that's a really good question, because when we were deciding, we knew what we wanted to be. So we started with what we wanted to be as a core. We wanted to be an approachable place where we provided the highest quality service, medicine, but we didn't want it to feel scary. And we also wanted it to produce the outcomes that our demographic wanted. So that meant that we knew that base, and then we had to build around it. So it's like, how do we communicate that to people who don't know about us yet? But when they walk by, I want them to be able to get a hint of this vision of what this place is going to be. So skin, right, is skin. And So that's that, right? We want our skin to look great. And then collab was really on like skin kind of companies or skin focused. And then collab, because we're integrated so much in the community, we really pride ourselves on educating and being partners with other people in the area. And then the lab is capitalized. And if you dive just a little bit deeper, we actually are a center for excellence and training for other providers. So we host trainings, clinics, and invite people into our space, and so that's what we call the lab. So it's almost like an inside kind of knowledge of all that, but together, Skin CoLab kind of denotes it's about skin, it's clinical, the lab, but we're also approachable, like a collab.
How do you feel like that branding, because branding is more than a logo. I love to talk about this with clients because they think that it's just the colors that you pick and the fonts and whatever your iconography is or your word mark, but it really is the feeling, that sensation you get when you walk through the doors, when you're interacting with the team, even the pre and post email correspondence that I get as a client. How does all of that work into the emotional connection part and trust, and why is that important?
I think as a customer myself, it's if there's a miss there, if something doesn't make sense in that sequence, it makes me feel uncertain. So that's with anything. It could be just me ordering my pizza and then I get this random email that's like in a different font. It looks weird. I'm like, I'm questioning my charge. Well, with your skin and your health, I mean, how much more important is that to feel like every T is crossed, every I is dotted? So we are really hyper focused. We know we're doing that on the back end and what we're delivering, but that needs to be communicated to our patients. And for a patient, they don't know what my medical procedures are. They don't care. They just want a perfect outcome. I can communicate that attention to detail to them through the other things, the beautiful stationery I have, or the lighting that's just right, or the scent, or, that reminder email that always comes through. So that consistency just kind of builds the trust that I'm trying to earn with my patients.
That, I think, and you've done a tremendous job of getting that locked and loaded before, and then bringing in that visual element. Like, you focused a lot on the emotive part of it. How do I want people to feel when they're in working with me and working with them? How do I want to talk? How do I want to talk about what we do? And then we get over to the visual identity, logo, color palette, typography, even photography, what type of stock photos you want to capture and use. Taking all of that, what was that process like for you in designing the brand?
Yeah, it was starting with what you wanted to deliver. And then you're right, then picking the fonts that represented that, picking the colors that represented it. Sometimes it's fun to see something and be like, oh, I want to copycat that or this or that just because it's fun. There's plenty of things that I see, but that just don't fit the brand. So we started, even before we picked our name, as we're picking the name, the fonts, everything. I mean, the design, we just wrote on a piece of paper every word we'd want to describe any hint of what this place would be. Things like shadows, natural, like elegant, like any word that would just come to my mind. That helped. Again, now we've got kind of like, okay, we need a name to represent that. Now, how is the font of that name going to further represent that? Okay, what colors support that? So it was all building on top of that. And we worked with a professional to help us figure that out. And I would highly recommend working with someone like you or a designer who understands how to shape that, because you're so inspired when you have a new place that you're kind of like all over the place and you need someone to reel you in, these 3 fonts, this is the way you use these 4 colors. These are your 3 core, here are your accessory. All that stuff is so helpful because you're very inspired and you're all over the place. And this brand guide that we made right off the bat basically reeled us in. So all of our design choices, our architecture, I mean, everybody gets a copy of this brand guide.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm so glad you said that piece. As business owners, even myself included, you're so close to it. And so much of your emotion, and I would argue some of your identity is involved in this because you care. I mean, you care really deeply. That's why you started your own business. That's why you didn't choose to go in under a different entity. So to have a trusted third party be able to look at it objectively and kind of lovingly be honest with you about, hey, we're neighboring some healthcare agencies. Maybe we want to stay away from these colors because we don't want to be associated with these brands, or we do want to be associated with this over here. So how do we
pick a little bit of that over there? Yes, I think it's an important distinction to map out what are we inspired by and what are we making sure that we're not just copying.
Absolutely.
Because people pick up on that big time. I think especially with this younger generation growing up with technology, they can pick up on when somebody's not being authentic or when they're just trying to be like this brand but cheaper, or this brand but
totally. And I think with that, Chelsea, too, it's like once you've picked your brand, like you have to stick with it because you want to modify it. You're around it every day. You see it, smell it, taste it every day. And so sometimes you get a little bit stir crazy with it. But again, if you are constantly switching your brand, again, people sniff that out. They're like, what, don't they know who they are? Just be who you are. It's totally fine. And subtle changes over time. I'd say every 2 to 3 years, we do a little audit of our brand book, and we never change anything dramatically, but maybe we're using a little less script and maybe we're using a little more of that. But if you change too much, it's like, what happened behind the scenes? Did the place blow up? Is Meredith still working there? I mean, and even if that was true, that what that does emotionally for your client isn't a positive thing for the business.
No. And that can sever a lot of that trust that you had from the beginning that you worked so hard to develop. You talked about it a little bit, this experiential branding. Branding it is not a one and done until you're ready to close or sell the business. I mean, it is a living, breathing thing that represents your business. How do you stay inspired as a business owner on Skin CoLab's branding and evolving it as you evolve?
Going back to seeing things through the eyes of a patient, I think our client is so interesting. I'm personally inspired by being outside of the business, being in nature. These are the things that were kind of inspired it from the beginning, gathering, trinkets here and there. But I have to admit, seeing or hearing things through the client's eyes is always interesting to me, like how they see it. What I think is obvious and glaring, isn't always what they see or hear. So I have to be really open to that. I might think that it's crystal clear what we do, that we do a hydrofacial and we're the best place to get Botox ever.
You've got somebody out there that's like,
they're like, you do facials? And I'm like, yes, there's the sign. So it's humbling sometimes because you think you're doing your best you can with your branding, with your marketing, your social, but you can't always guarantee people are going to hear what you're saying and the way you're saying it. So that's something that I'm working on constantly doing and asking people, because I'm always shocked because again, I'm in it every day. I'm like, how is this not super obvious? It's not always.
It's funny. I, as a honorary skin nerd, I'm not licensed anyway. I just care a lot about skin health, and I've been on my own journey. But it's wild to me. I remember I had a bit of a flare up in 2023, and I remember talking to my doctor. I was trying to treat it medically, and I was like, I've been putting hyaluronic acid on my face, like I've been putting this balm or whatever. And she's like, ooh, I don't think we want to be putting any kind of acids. And I just kind of stopped myself for a second. I was like, no, that's hyaluronic acid is good. It's not, it's hydrating. It's in
like
our
a moisturizer.
Yeah. Like we want more of that. But to your point, yes, it can be challenging to remind when you're in it so often. I get the same in marketing and social media and branding, like things that are just, well, yeah, of course I would do that, are not that way. And let's talk about how we as business owners get into the client headspace. I find to inspire myself and remind myself what would be of value, this podcast being one of them, one of those avenues, what would be of value to my ideal clients looking to learn more. And I find that we have to get out of our own circles, our own industry. So that's when I usually turn to manufacturing or construction or literally anything else. What is it like to run that business and think about it from their point of view? How do you do that with your...
That's such a good idea. And yeah, and I'm sure you do too, you're so tight in your community, and yes, traveling nationally and training other clinics and doing all these things. it's inspiring in the sense that you see how other people are doing it. And I love my colleagues and just that whole thing. But all of a sudden, your algorithm's all the same. So all you're seeing is the same thing. And I find myself, I really, I try to, in terms of like industry, I focus on a few key other practices that I really admire from across the country. I really don't follow anything necessarily locally. Not that I don't want to know, but I want to be original. And it's really hard. It's like if you're authoring a book and you're reading like, a book by, Joe Schmo, all of a sudden you start sounding like Joe Schmo, or you're starting to feel insecure. Like I need to do what Joe Schmo is doing. So I'm trying to stay really true to who we are while staying really engaged in the science and what the industry is doing. That's obviously super important. It's why people come to us. So that's one way I've kind of given myself like some space. I don't want to say put my head in the sand, but a little bit in a small way.
I think that's
my
healthy.
idea bigger. And then, looking at other industries, understanding, organizational structures. It doesn't always apply, but certainly there's always something to glean from that.
100%. I was listening to a Scale Up podcast, and they had a business strategist on there interviewing her. And she said she pulls a lot of inspiration if she's working with finance clients, pulling inspiration from the art industry or manufacturing or even real estate, because even though that might not be what you do, like you're still interacting with people and there could be lessons to be learned from other industries. Distracting yourself with what your competitors are doing or colleagues or whatever. Everybody's got their own lane that they should be focused
Yeah, it's kind of a waste of energy. I'll get a flyer in the mail and think, gosh, that's really great. Why am I picking up that flyer? It has nothing to do. It's window washing or it's real estate, for example. But gosh, I don't know anything about real estate yet. I'm picking this up and I'm looking at it and I understand it. How could I maybe bring that in for my clients that don't need to know all the nitty gritty of what I'm doing? They just need to get the bigger picture, that message. I mean, podcasts are awesome. I mean, how fun is it to listen to how I built this, just to know that like the grind is real and like failure happens. And sometimes you just need to like hear great stories
Michigan,
to
there's
inspire
other
you.
businesses. There's other businesses out there that are also like, I don't know how to do this.
You're figuring out a bunch of problems. It is a living, breathing organism. And I'll say, like, going back to even like launching, I remember wanting to have everything perfect. And in medicine, like you try to learn the right answer, right? So like you memorize this at XYZ, this is the diagnosis, this is the treatment. That treatment doesn't work, you go here. So owning a business is really different because it's solving a series of challenges. Like it's never done. It's not so methodical. So I had to change my mindset. So I remember even launching our website with my practice manager who's coaching me along with this. And I'm like, no, we cannot post it. It's not perfect. And she's like, it's always going to be changing, Meredith. I'm like, no, but it has to be just right. She said, it's a living, breathing organism. And how many iterations of that website have we had? And I really had to just talk about taking inspiration from another source. Like I had to get out of my own way in terms of just everything had to be totally buttoned up and accept that this was going to be an ongoing process over time.
I think that also builds trust with the long-term clients too. There's the OGs that follow you in the beginning and they feel personally connected. I know that there's a salon locally that I've been a part of. I think they were open a year and a half, 2 years, and I've been a client there for their entire existence. And it's been a treat to watch their brand evolve and being like one of those legacy clients.
Yeah.
I think people are okay with that. They get that. It's transparent as long as you're continuing to stay truthful in front of them, offering them high quality content, educational material, and continue to build the trust. I mean, yeah, they'll ride that journey with you. It doesn't have to be, as a fellow perfectionist, I also need to remind myself like 80% is awesome. Like don't let perfect get in the way of great.
Yes. I quote that to myself many days.
So I want to talk about a couple tips that some of our listeners can take with them on building a holistic brand, like I feel like we have and continue to do. First, I have on my list is to identify the unique value proposition. Mm-hmm. How important is that, do you feel?
You have to have it because it's basically what you're serving for dinner. I mean, it's what you're serving. This is what you're going to say you do. I say we are like the highest quality, highest standard medical aesthetic practice in a setting that feels very approachable and luxury. there you go. Like that doesn't change. Like that's the way it's going to be. And then someone says, well, do I want that? Yeah, I want that. Or no, that's not for me. And it really helps you hone in, helps communicate, right, to hopefully your potential client what they might expect. And then you've got to deliver that, but being different in some way, shape, or form. I don't think you always have to be like so wacky different. A hair salon's a great example. Like you get your hair done at a lot of places, but those subtle nuances, like, okay, it's a little bit of a modern,
All my greeted, what type
all
of
this stuff.
correspondence do I get pre and post appointment? How do I
Is
feel
it,
throughout the
yes,
appointment?
is the shtick, okay, I can be seen until 9 o'clock at night? Is it like, maybe that's your unique selling proposition? Maybe you do the exact same thing as the person next door, but guess what? Your hours are different. That suits a different need for a different client. So I think it's super important. I think getting to what your unique value proposition is an interesting process sometimes, because I don't know that everybody always identifies it right off the bat. So you have to find out why you're unique, how you're unique.
And continue to ask why, even if it feels yucky, like, ooh, but this is hard. Yeah, it is hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's supposed to be hard. That's what I keep asking why until you, this is where a little bit of my like woo comes in with some of the work that I do, is continue to ask why until you almost get this like release in your body and like this perfect alignment that happens where you're like, yes.
That's why, because you're always looking for that. The question, and you're kind of discontent until you really, if there's a little bit of space in the background, you feel it until you've really hit that core. And it's okay to be honest about it. Until you're honest about it and really know it, yeah, there's just this kind of like shifting that you're like, oh, I don't know if that's going to be sand I'm standing on or like solid rock,
Yes, that is 90% of the time when I come in with clients where they do have that space. They've lost sight of their unique value proposition. They need to like find their way back home, be reinvigorated, or their business has grown to a position where they need to reevaluate what that is.
If you are going into a business, Chelsie, can you spot their unique value proposition like off the bat? Or does it take searching sometimes? Like as an outsider, when you walk in and they're kind of like swimming, are you able to be like, no, this is it for you, or this could be it?
Most of the time in a first meeting, I can. I don't know it even like within 30 seconds. I'm not that good. I don't know if anybody is that, but I can always tell when they're not being honest with themselves.
Okay.
About their business.
What would cue you in that they weren't quite dialed in on themselves?
It is the like micro expressions. It's the tone of voice. It's their eye contact. It's their body language when they talk about what the business does. I can tell if they're just freaking bored with it and they're just not inspired anymore. I can tell the people that are really jazzed about it and they're ready to like take it to the next level, or they're bored with it and we have to take a step back in the journey to get excited and find that why again, and then move forward and level up. So a lot of times I'll come in, the request is, we need help with social media. We're kind of taking a little tangent, but I love this question. The question is, we need social media support, or we need a new website. And I do a little poking around and it's like, okay, you're not updating your website because it's too clunky, but you're also not creating content for the work that you do because you don't really give a shit anymore. Mm-hmm. You kind of just fallen sleepy with it and have forgotten the why. When you're really excited and find joy and meaning in the work that you do, and I'm talking about like, it could be Target, it could be, Ziploc bags. I mean, they have unique value proposition. To get excited about that, again, it just flows through the fingers and the content becomes super easy.
Interesting.
So usually the initial request isn't, wow, we just don't know what we want. It is usually
we don't know who
a direct request, like our content. Yeah. We just need somebody to make content for us. And I'm like, okay, tell me more about that.
Yeah, sure.
That's so email marketing. Are you even talking to people? Like, what's going on? And then and we come up with a whole plan. Okay, so we talked about unique value proposition. Now we're going to talk about the second tip for building a holistic brand would be to ensure consistency across all your channels. And that's where the colors, the fonts, the logo, everything comes in. Skin CoLab does this beautifully. Everything that I get from you guys, it matches. And I love that.
Because you only have 7 choices, Chelsie. If you're making it, you don't get to pick.
I need a really big blocky font. Nope.
Nope,
Skin
it's
CoLab.
cute, but not for us. And it even comes down to retail when we're, we do lifestyle retail and we can find something that's just so amazing. It just doesn't fit our brand. And so it doesn't come in. It's going to stick out like a
You
sore thumb.
even so much will sometimes not bring in
It will
certain
not retail an
products.
item. Yeah, if it's a little edgier, then we can kind of skirt, but if it's not in line, it might be great, but it does not fit. It's going to throw off the whole vibe. And we are very much like you can feel like it's a very cohesive energy in our space. And that is our brand. There's other places where it's sporadic, and that's the fun thing about it. Go explore.
Indie. Yes.
It's just so that's okay, but it's just not okay for us.
And then your collab part comes in and you're like, it sounds like you
go over there and get that thing.
Here are a list of incredible indie brand partners that carry some of these bespoke brands if you're just looking to play around with some different stuff.
Totally.
I love that. A third tip for our listeners here is to invest in understanding your audience and crafting a narrative that resonates with them. We talked about that as far as getting into our target market's shoes, remembering you lamented on it can be challenging to get into a client's mindset. I talked about my doctor not knowing what hyaluronic acid is or was afraid that it was eating my face when actually it was hydrating it. So
sometimes it's disheartening too, because you try really hard, right? But then when people don't hear you, it's sometimes you're like, okay, shoot. And it's really easy to become defensive. Well, I said this and I did this and it's not about that. It's not whether you did it or not. It's, are we delivering this in a package that they can hear it? So I just think being very open to feedback. You don't always have to take it, but just being open to it is so, so helpful. And knowing, you are your brand, but like it's its own thing. Like it's not personal. Like be unoffendable when it comes to this stuff, because the ultimate goal is communication and delivering, a service to a person in a way that they can hear it and receive it and have a great experience.
Yeah, what a fun opportunity if you hear enough feedback enough times to be like, hey, wait a minute, maybe this could be an additional revenue stream. Maybe this could be a new content offering. Maybe this could be this, because I've heard this enough times and I allow for that space to listen rather than get defensive. Yeah.
Yeah, it's how our wellness really was born in terms of like IV and, wellness injections. We had a lot of patients say patients of all types, but a lot of people are looking to work smarter, not harder. Maybe they're an executive and they're coming in for their treatment and they're like, gosh, wouldn't it be great to be able to do XYZ, or I love this. We're like, well, why wouldn't it be amazing to have an IV while you're having your hydrofacial and being under the red light? Like that sounds like the most efficient, wonderful luxury experience ever. So that's the fun thing about being in business. You do the research, you figure out if it works, and then you can implement it.
Totally. I guess this is probably our fourth tip. Start small, focusing on one or two touch points with your business, and then create a stellar experience with those, and then build from there. Tact originally started, it was a different name, but was just content creation. Okay. And then it grew into some website stuff. And then it grew into more strategic vision, some business development piece. Skin CoLab started.
Botox fillers. Basics. We started with a bang, but all the good stuff. I'd say in my industry, Chelsie, we came with a focus, and we have, the nice thing is it's a new business, but we're experienced in the industry. So our focus was more like, we're going to dial into what really works, and then growing, let's say, okay, we have a laser, we've got this, we've, hearing from our customers, we started seeing a lot of teenagers. So we developed a line of skincare products specifically tailored towards teen acne prone skin, because our expensive serums that, adults might want were completely inappropriate for the kids. And so that was one way that we kind of grew. We didn't start out with that. We didn't even know we needed it. And then I think as you grow, it's important to know when to stop too, because there's a lot of FOMO, and at least in my industry, I don't know how it is for you guys, but it's like, this machine or that, and this is going to fix everything. And you're just like grabbing to be the person with the new thing for the unboxing. And so it's a discipline to to grow, but not get distracted and kind of still stay focused, right?
Yes. You're not trying to, treat some wrinkles while also doing, balloon art, while also, having a coffee shop in your
Totally.
in your practice. You're like, but great. There's Fox just down the road. You can go there first. We'll be here. We'll wait for you. Awesome. It's been so fun talking to you. Do you have any closing advice, musings, tips you want to share with?
I really feel like in terms of branding goes, like working with a professional like Tact or somebody that can give you good objective data. They're not going to take your identity from you. They use it as inspiration, and help you hone it in, dial it in. And it's a wonderful person to have in your life that if you have the opportunity to do this from inception, I think it's just like, it's time and money well spent, because it gets you off the blocks in just a really positive, focused way. As you're hiring employees, they know exactly who you are. It plays itself into everything. And then they're with you, hopefully, for the duration. And so let's say, okay, we're cruising, we're doing great. Now we check back in. Hey, can you look at this again? It's been a year and a half, 2 years since our website. It was so fresh. Now it's looking a little stale. Like, our brand, what we're about. Like, can you help? So it's really helpful to have that relationship off the bat. And I'm so glad I did that. It's something I didn't know I needed, but definitely is worth its weight in gold. Yes. Could you figure all this out? You probably could. It would take you longer and you wouldn't do as good of a job.
Sure. Yeah. It's just a thing that comes to mind. And I have to remind myself of this in my own business too. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And there is power in community and that kind of thing. Okay, this is what this person specializes in. Build trust with that person.
Totally. And in a small business, you've got to be resourceful. You got to be scrappy. I'm the number one fan for that.
Will recognize that and not bleed you dry. They'll see that and say, "What's your budget? Let's work with that." And what are our primary items that we need to focus on.
And again, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Even if you're being scrappy, be scrappy about other things. These are things you're attorney.
Not about the thing that people interact with on a daily basis. Really
foundational things. Get it right, because redoing it later, I think would be very difficult.
Yes. I just have this visual right now. It's probably a wipeout show where people are running across the rocks really quickly, because if they move faster, and there's some that are will sink on you and some that are so if you just move so fast, then you're not going to get tripped up, and that doesn't work out for them. In fact, you end up getting
hurt. Always wipe out.
Instead of strategically testing.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Where can we find you? What can my listeners, where can they, your website?
I love meeting people in person. So if they're in Grand Rapids area, we are in downtown Ada, gorgeous space right on the corner of this. Can't miss us, right downtown. A lot of beautiful retail, just a sunny, wonderful place to experience. And then you can find us on social. We hang out a lot on Instagram at Science Beauty PAC. That's me. And then at Skin CoLab _.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Meredith. It was awesome seeing you and chatting about all things branding. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you for listening. If you have a couple of moments, please leave a review on this podcast. This helps us create more impactful content for you and continue to meet you where you are. And if you have another 30 seconds to spare, I'd love to see you on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We post weekly content there for you to take advantage of and start implementing into your business's routine and grow your business even further. If you'd like to watch the video version of this podcast, you can visit our YouTube channel. All of the links to these social channels are listed below in the show notes. And remember, work smarter, not harder.